So given the Sunday worship service and all of us here today, here's some words from our friend Frederick Buechner. Using the same old materials of earth, air, fire, and water, every 24 hours, God creates something new out of them. If you think you're seeing the same show all over again 7 times a week, you're crazy. Every morning you wake up to something that in all eternity never was before and never will be again. And the you that wakes up was never the same before and will never be the same again either. That's where he ends, but I add, and the coming together of your group was never the same before and will never be the same again either. We are in a time of new discoveries and new opportunities, and I'm just so grateful that you guys are continuing to imagine how your group might come together. And so I'm going to start us with just a little quick prayer, all right? God of imagination, open our hearts to what you are up to in our small groups and in the wider world today, and help us to be co-creators with you, sharing your love. Thank you for each person on this call and this chance to gather. Spark our imagination. Amen.
Amen.
All right, thank you. So Grant, you can pull up the next screen. So here's what I think we're going to do tonight. And first of all, I'll say, you might find it helpful to, there's a way that you can, in my screen on the upper right, I think it is, you can do this so you can see the screen with Grant's stuff on it, and then you can see people on the side, and that might make it more interesting for you so you don't have to just stare at my words. So here's what I think we're gonna do. We're gonna talk about the St. John's Bible, which is a great resource to begin with, and we have some more exciting news about that. We're going to talk a bit about what 2021 looks like. Well, who knows what it looks like, right? But we're going to try, and some themes that will pop up at Incarnation. We'll do a little talk about racial justice and some resources, Psalms for Living, a resource called The Walk, and Renew Your Life. And at this point, is there anything else that you guys were curious about that's not on this list that you want to make sure we talk about? You're going to have to shout it out because I can't see all of you right now.
I would like to address one matter, and that is anybody starting a new group on Zoom?
I am. I just did.
You did?
I did last week.
Uh-huh.
And I'm using the Caring for One Another. So Georgia, it's a lot of what I have used with knitting.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same materials that we've used in knitting, but I'm just using them, and we're meeting once a week for 8 weeks, actually 7.
And there are about 6 new Renew Your Life groups that have started on Zoom too. So it is a possibility.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Denise and I have talked about this, my starting another group on Holy Envy, and I had said I didn't think that starting on Zoom was really a good way to do it, but it looks like that's going to be our format for the foreseeable future. So I'd like to get going on another one.
Thanks, Georgia. Mark, I saw your hand too.
Yeah, I was just going to ask about, so our group typically does not do homework. So,
Yep.
And so confession of slackers, but we just enjoy getting together, connecting, but also typically with a video format that's provocative, starts the conversation, and then we have a lot of questions and talk. Do we have anything like that coming up? I saw a lot of those topics looked like they're probably book format or study guide. Is there something, A, that's a video format, kind of like the Numas or what have you? And B, is there anything related to racial justice, kind of topical stuff that's video?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so in answer to the first question about no homework, yes. Video, yes, but it depends on how you can use Zoom or not and your computer setup. So we'll come back around to that. And there's a bunch of racial justice stuff, so that'll be on there too. But if we don't answer one of those questions in the way that's helpful, come back around, okay?
Great, thank you.
Anything else you guys are wondering about? Okay, I'm going to send out the slides that Grant is scrolling through, so you'll have a chance to have those. Some of this will also be on a resource page that's coming onto the website that is resources for 2020, 2021. So there, some of the pieces on the slides, especially in the racial justice area, I worked on after that. And so there's some additional materials that you guys will get that there. So you don't have to kind of scribble unless you want to. And we're gonna move a little quick. So, cause we want to get through in actually just about an hour now, but I'm happy to stay on afterwards or to talk with anybody later on as well. So feel free to do that. And if I haven't answered some of the questions that just came up, please circle back around with me, okay, to make sure I get that. So with that, kind of the first one on that list was the St. John's Bible, which is an amazing resource and an amazing gift that we have at Incarnation. We already had something called Seeing the Word, and this is based on Seeing the Word, but our friends Grant and Deb Ricken, yay, have made it even more amazing with some supplemental materials, and I'm going to turn it over to them to kind of walk through what this looks like.
All right, can you hear me all right?
Mhm.
Yes, okay, good. So as Denise said, one of the resources that you could consider for a group this year is the St. John's Bible. It combines actually different texts with images that are in the Bible. Just a little background on it. The St. John's Bible was commissioned by St. John's University in Collegeville in 1998. And it's the first handwritten and completely illuminated Bible since the printing press 500 years ago. And it took until 2011 to be completed. And we at Incarnation have been gifted with what's called the Heritage Edition of the St. John's Bible. There will be only 299 of these made. About 100 are now out for distribution. And the Heritage Edition is an actual life-size or original size as the St. John's Bible. It's huge. It's when the pages are open, they're like 2 feet tall and 3 feet wide. And Incarnations is housed in the chapel if you haven't seen it. All of the illuminations, or many of them at least, were touched up by hand, including the burnishing of the gold leaf. And as Denise said, there's a curriculum that's been designed to go along with it that was commissioned by St. John's Bible. And it's to help people understand more, it's a Bible study, but also to ignite the spiritual imagination, because it's sort of like art meets scripture. Those resources are called Seeing the Word. So Grant, if you can show the next slide. So as I said, the Seeing the Word is a set of booklets, and it presents a new way of reading the Bible that combines the scriptures with illuminations. You can see on the image here, this is the illumination for creation. That's like 3 feet high and about 1.5 feet wide, that illumination. It's incredible. That shows the Genesis text. And this is just, every booklet in the curriculum focuses on a different text. So that allows you flexibility on what text you're looking at. You can match it up with a church year. It can be a standalone if you just want to do one session to experiment and see what this is like. And what happens in the Seeing the Word is participants are guided through the spiritual practices of Lectio Divina. Lectio means reading. Divina is divine, reading the divine word. And Visio Divina, which is Visio, seeing the divine. So again, the purpose is to ignite your spiritual imagination. In the next slide, it shows just some samples of some of the materials. These booklets have been created. These resources have been around for maybe 6 years. Julie, can you help me out? Julie and Claudia started a group before we had Heritage Edition, right?
Yeah, we've done at least 3 years, so.
Yeah. So they've been using these resources. And with the onset of COVID, we had to move to virtual meetings, so we couldn't access this resource the last several months. And it worked just fine because we made slides with all the pictures in. And so our group, this will be year 3 coming up for us. So this is a great resource, depending on what happens, if we're fortunate enough to get together face to face, or if we have to continue meeting by Zoom. This resource works for either situation. And as I said, it can be a year long. We've been doing it every month, but you can also use it like, gee, I'd like to do it in December, for example, and look at what does the text look like, the illumination for the birth of Christ. The next slide shows just sort of what the format of this resource looks like, this booklet you get. There's an opening question. It's very similar to how our small groups are structured. There's an opening question and a closing prayer. And then, as I said, they're guided, the participants are guided through Lectio Divina and Visio Divina. And then there's a time to look at what others say, what others have written about it, about the text, about the illumination, and just learn a little more about the background for it. So again, the structure is fairly similar to what, but incorporates the practices of Lectio Divina and Visio Divina. In the next slide, Grant and I have been doing this a couple years, and we've been documenting along the way what we've been doing as we sort of figured out how to do this, because it was all new to us. And so we've started to put together a leader's guide for whether you did it face-to-face or if you did this in a virtual setting. And it gives you step-by-step instructions. You don't have to follow the step-by-step instructions. They're just intended as a guide, but it's a starting point if this is a new resource for you to kind of, to know where it goes. And all these resources will be in a password protected small group ministry folder, including, you can see a snapshot of the slides that you would use to go along with it. You don't have to create them, they're already created, and they just pop up and off you go. So that, all those resources will be in there that include time settings for each section of the small group meeting. You want to flip? Okay. So small group leaders, Denise has been gracious enough to provide these two resources also for leaders. And they give background information on both the text, what was going on at that time with the text, and the illumination themselves. So you can feel free to go in there and read all you want. What we have done is looked at each of the text that's highlighted and sort of pulled out a summary. And that's what you see on the right side there. This is from, the two resources are from Susan Sink and Michael Patella. And this is, okay, so this is about the creation image. It says the 7-panel overview, and then it talks about some of the highlights. All of that information, that summary is provided, will be provided for you if you choose to do this, so that you don't have to do homework as a leader unless you want to. Dig in there as much as you want to. But we've sort of pulled out the highlights for you. And we've also created from that a learner's guide that just has the bullet points. If you were to meet in face and you wanted to give your participants like a guided note sheet where they could write things down, that is available for you as well for each of the illuminations. Next slide. We worked with Julie and Claudia a little bit and said, okay, if you were to do a year, what would that look like? And so this is what we propose, because about half of these follow the church year. Creation is a great one to start with in the beginning. The Messianic predictions is about Advent, when we kick off Advent, then the birth of Christ in December, and so forth. Crucifixion happens in Lent, resurrection happens at Easter. And so we plan to create these resources for a full year. So if that you wanted to do it, or if you wanted to choose a couple, it's totally flexible what you'd like to do. And then, if you're interested in doing this, either virtually or face-to-face, Grant and I would certainly be available to help you, or we could do a practice session together so you could see how it works, or whatever support you need. So that's a lot of information.
Yeah, just one piece I would just want to, Deb mentioned this, but in particular, you know how sometimes you're doing a resource and you end up with 1 month that you don't have any resource for. Sometimes we throw in a pneuma maybe, or you just want something a little different. That's part of what Deb was mentioning when she said you could do just one of these illuminations, you know, even in a year, just doing one or two scattered throughout as you have opportunity.
And can I make a comment too? Claudia and I, this last year, showed, well, the year before that, we tried to follow the Sunday lectionary, and we worked really hard to find the illuminations because we had already used the other materials. This last year, we did the Pentateuch and found plenty of illuminations in the Pentateuch to cover our monthly gatherings, and had a great time doing that. So Claudia and I hope to, before the summer is over, spend enough time to put together the same kinds of materials perhaps for the Pentateuch that we did, because it worked really, really well. We don't know exactly how we're going to do it this next time, but we still probably are going to do another group. So,
Other questions?
I just want to say thanks for all the work you put into these. It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's an
so
amazing resource.
it for sure is. I mean, we are so lucky blessed to have that heritage edition of the Bible. It's really extraordinary. So there's a lot of information to take in here, but basically there's the Seeing the Word packages, and then Grant and Deb have created this separate wonderful guide for doing this and done all the background research for you for each of those slides as well. I mean, can you imagine? It's extraordinary. So yay, hats off to you guys for doing that. As they said, this is something that you could use for a whole year, but you could just do it as one devotion. I would say we should maybe talk about that a little bit because we don't have all of the Seeing the Word packages. And so we would want to order some of those, and maybe I should just do that as a kind of foreshadowing of what could come. So yeah. And Deb, anything else?
It's good.
Claire's raising her hand, but she's muted.
You have to off mute.
Sorry. Is it a one-year study, or is it are there other, can it go over many years?
I think there are 216 illuminations. We're going to do 8.
Okay.
Well,
They have created 2 years of these fancy Seeing the Word booklets. And what Julie was alluding to is they're working on the Pentateuch and other resources. So I think the goal is to keep expanding. Would you agree, Julie?
right, right.
Because
And with all of the opportunities, there are not only illuminations, but frontispieces in between some of the books that are fantastic places to look for things to be, you know, imaginative about as well. So opportunities are galore.
Thanks.
Okay, anything else? We can come back around to questions again later too. So thanks you guys. Wow, extraordinary. Yay. Amazing stuff. So thank you. I want to talk just a little bit with you about what it means to be in 2020, 2021 as we move ahead. And who knows what it means, right? It feels like it's kind of a gray thing. We for sure hope that we could see each other face to face and be in the same room, and that's hopefully a possibility. But we also know that it might not be, or along the way we might need to shift gears, or for whatever reason someone else may want to be on Zoom with a group that's meeting together. And so one of the things I think that we all want to think about as we look at resources is some flexibility and being adaptable. So if you are somebody that's planning to meet in person, to have a resource or a backup plan in case you need to go onto Zoom, or if you're on Zoom, perhaps to have something that could go in person if you want to, but it's less likely that you'd be moving that direction. But because of that, a lot of the resources that I'm going to show tonight are things that are on the Incarnation website that you could simply, or will be on the Incarnation website, that you could simply take and download, and any of your group members could do that as well. So something that you should think about as we go through this is, how is it that you guys think you're going to gather? And what would be your backup plan if that changes? And what does that mean for your resource? So there's a lot of easy to download, easy to print stuff that we're going to talk about, but that's something to think about at least as a backup. And then to consider whether you have, if you're on Zoom, do you have access to a DVD player? That's back to Mark's question. My latest laptop doesn't have a DVD player in it, and there are many other people who don't have it. So you want to just check and see if that's a possibility, or if you're streaming something online, whether you're comfortable using that with Zoom. If in fact you end up starting out and we need to meet virtually, there are a few small group ministry accounts. Some of you are already using those. Raise your hand. Ruth's using it.
No, I'm using my own.
You're using your own. In any case, there are some available, and so we can talk about how to make that work. Jim's using it, I know. There we go. So in any case, those are just a few things to think about. Alongside that, one of the things that we are needing to think a little bit differently about is how we order resources. And so here's some shifts that I'd like you to kind of keep in mind. Some of this is due to COVID-19 because there's nobody in the office right now to accept deliveries, for example, or to get things turned around to hand back out to you because the office isn't open. And as you've probably heard, there's less of an interest in actually physically handling things as well. So all of this to be considered, along with kind of the staff work that goes along with that, means that a couple of things I'd like to experiment this year would be, again, that there will be stuff on the website that you can download. And if you are a leader for looking for DVDs or a leader guide, that we would order that for you, but probably have it sent directly to your house. So instead of ordering it and then there's the green bag deal and you pick it up and take it away, we would probably send that right directly to your house. And here's kind of the big one, and I'm curious to hear feedback on this. So, but this is kind of a big change, is we would really appreciate it if group members actually ordered their own resources. So if you're using something that has a study guide for individuals, if maybe you could help them to order that. Or Georgia, if you're doing Holy Envy again, if they could order their own copy of the book, that would make an enormous difference in kind of the closed office thing and the amount of staff time that we need to do to put that together. Now, some of you are going to think, oh, I'm going to order it all. I've got a Prime account. I'll get it all for the group. And you for sure can do that. But I want to caution you that it's tricky to get reimbursements, even with people who have the very best intentions. So my word to the wise would be that you may want to have people order their own for that reason. The downside, of course, is some people may not do that, may forget, all that stuff. But this is, we're living in an imperfect world right now. And so, so that's some of what I'm proposing, I guess, to go into the fall. So back to the St. John's Bible, as they said, they started in person with the Bible right there in front of them, right? But they were able to shift, even in that resource, they were able to shift to doing it virtually, which I think is just extraordinary and speaks to a certain amount of flexibility and adaptation. So with that, I'll just pause and see if you want to throw me off the Zoom call right now. Comments, thoughts? It's a different world. So,
it's great that we order our own resources.
Yeah.
And I think everybody has become much more able to do that during all of this time too. We've had to do that, so.
Yeah, my hope all along has been to make things as easy as possible for leaders. And so we were trying to do that to make it more something that you can step into without a lot of work. But I have to say we're at a place where we need some help with that. We need some assistance pulling that together. If that's a problem for you in any way, give me a call. Let's talk it through, because I don't want it to be a game stopper. But I really honestly have to say we could use your help in this weird, unusual time that we're in. So with that, there's a couple of things for fall 2020 and winter 2021 that I want to show you. And so Grant, here we go to the next resource. So as you probably have seen with Renew Your Life this last year, there's a great interest at Incarnation now in having a congregational theme that's used in sermons on Sunday and across a variety of different ministry areas. And so something that would be in a sermon, but also done in small groups, also done in children's ministry and across the board. And so, Grant, we're going to go down a couple more slides when you get a chance to keep going to the next one. There we go. So the theme for 2020 for fall is really You Matter to God. And it's really a lot about listening. So listening, you matter to God. That may not be the title it ends up being, but that's the one I'm using for today. So similar to Renew Your Life, well, similar to the Psalms, there will be a large group kickoff session, which would be open to anybody who's using the materials, but optional. And then there will be 6 small group faith study sessions. So what this would look like is your group members could go to worship and then come alongside to your small group, and there'd be a faith study guide that would have the same stuff that we always have with a written reflection. And the idea here is that the same conversation is happening amongst folks across the entire community. And so we're all together engaged in a particular theme. And so the 6 sessions for this one are Your Life Matters to God, Your Life Matters to Your Neighbor, Listening to God, Your Unique Wiring Matters, so how you're put together, your gift package, Listening to Your Life, Your Vocation Matters, and vocation broadly understood as role as a parent, as a volunteer, across the board. Listening to others, Your Life Matters to Others, and listening to your life, how is it that you tend to your soul? And so there's actually a much longer list for the Sunday sermons, but these are the 6 that we're going to put together in faith study segments for groups. And Grant, if you want to flip to the next slide, here is a bit of a description of the series. So God loves you. You matter to God. God created you as a one-of-a-kind person with gifts and possibilities to share with others. You isn't just singular, though. It's plural, too. God loves us as a community. God loves all communities, and it matters to God how our community strives to co-create a world closer to what Jesus imagines. How can we listen for God's love and watch for the gifts that God has given us for the sake of the world? How can we listen for how God wants us to be a gift in the world? So again, this is it's a larger effort, but there's a standalone small group component that your group could take part in, and that there will be new groups to take part in. And for that, there will be 6 faith studies that you could make use of. Now you could do that across the fall, meeting more often, or you could spread that out across 6 months. Some of you meet monthly. Either of those options is fine. But this is just a resource that will be on the Incarnation website that you can download and use, boom, ready to go, no prep needed at all. And people can also simply listen to the sermons online, watch the sermons online, and have a sense of things from that too for the conversation. So in some ways it's similar to what we've done with Renew Your Life, but a new theme and a new direction. So that is fall 2020. I'm gonna keep going to winter, and we can come back to this in a bit here too. So winter's theme is all about caring for one another. There's a larger title to it, but for our purpose, caring for one another. And we created in the last year 10 sessions, and some of you were part of this, through the Caring Community Initiative of the Long Range Plan. And it's really all about how to walk with one another in challenging times. And, you know, isn't that where we're in right now? How is it that we walk with folks who are isolated on their own? How is it we walk with people who maybe have lost their job? How is it that we walk with our own family members during this time? So it's just really, I think, more timely than we even planned for it to be. Ruth has been using this in a brand new group that she just started this month, and I think also in her knitting group. Is that right, Ruth?
I did. This last year I used it in my knitting group.
Yeah, and so this is what it looks like. It looks very similar to the same format we've used for other things. Opening question, what does the Bible say? Think about. We had it in a pretty little package, but that was harder to download off the web, and so we've changed the formatting to look like this. And I'm talking too much because I wanted to hand it over to Ruth. So Ruth, what would you like to tell these guys about this?
Well, I have enjoyed using it very much. I enjoyed it with my knitting group, and in the knitting group, I did all the reading and just asked the questions. I mean, they're knitting, and so they're listening, and Georgia can chime in too because she's in my knitting group. And and it works very well for a group like a knitting group, but now I'm trying it on Zoom with a smaller group of people. There are only 8 of us altogether, and that was by design. And I've only done 1 session with it, but it went very well. One of the things I appreciate all of it, but the opening questions, the questions are very good. And then usually the what does the Bible say is in Revised Standard Version and the Message, which is interesting. And if it isn't, you can do the Message with it to talk about that, talk about scripture in that way. And then there's Jean has done a lot of the writing, although there are other authors also for these, and they're very thought-provoking, very, I think, very well done. And then there are questions to talk about afterwards and suggestions of what you can do when you leave the group. So I can't tell you much about how it works with a Zoom group. And tomorrow I'm going to have to talk to my people about, since I'm used to doing all the reading and all, just sort of leading it all because the other people are clicking knitting needles, it's a different situation. And I don't know if people are going to want to do some of the reading because they have the resource in hand. When I was doing it with knitting, they didn't have the resource. So it was only that they listened and responded. So that's different also. So the experience, I think, will be different.
Thanks, Ruth. So this is another resource where you could do the whole thing across the year, or you could just pick up one of these as a devotion for your group one time. So it's very portable. It can be online. You can download it. And Paula actually also was part of the process of creating these. So Paula, I don't know if you have anything you want to add, but you sure can.
And Georgia, would you have any comment about how it worked in knitting?
I'm just interested in the comparison that you're making. It has worked beautifully in knitting group because we sit and listen and we respond, and there's a lot of dialogue that goes on in the group. It's worked well that way, but I can see where with a different type of group, the logistics are different and you may want to use a different way.
So Grant, would you go to the next slide? So here are some of the themes. So life seasons, changes and transitions, which I've heard folks really resonate with in this time frame. Holding one another in prayer. Can I say that to God? Lament as an act of faith. God meets us in times of suffering, finding hope in difficult times, shaped and reshaped vessels of God's love. And there's some sessions upcoming on listening and being present that we're just finishing now. And that's not a complete list. Those are just some that I happen to have in front of me at the moment.
And
also, go ahead.
Grant made a spreadsheet of some things that are available on YouTube that I can use. But when Grant and I were talking about doing it, I'm going to use a, I'm not going to show them during the meeting. I'm just going to give them the resource so that they can go on the YouTube after the meeting or before the meeting, rather than try to do the technology myself of getting a YouTube up on the screen.
Yeah, thanks, Ruth.
Kind of a workaround that I'm going to do.
Yeah, but that is a possibility, especially if you were meeting in person and wanted to hook into that.
Right.
So, yeah. So as Ruth said, many of these were written by Jean, but Paula has written one. Yay! Shaped and Reshaped actually is a recreation of something that Luther did that I think is very powerful. There are a few other writers in there as well. And so the package here was Fall 2020, a series of faith studies you could use. Winter 2021, another package where you're in kind of the same conversation as the entire community is, but you wouldn't have to do either of these in those seasons. So you could start this right away in the fall, as Ruth has done this summer, and kind of keep moving through it, or you could intersperse it. This is kind of a mix and match opportunity. So that makes sense?
Denise, will there be sermons that also follow this in the winter, or this? Okay, you might.
So the answer to that I'm going to say is yes, but I don't know that for sure. There will be sermons on a similar theme. Let's say that. Really, it is on how we are community for one another. And I know, so I can't say that the sermons will exactly follow these, but there will be corresponding sermons. So did I dance through that one okay? Any other questions on those two? And I can't see you, so you might have to just pipe up.
That's good. I'm good.
Okay. So the next, we're going to move on to the next resource, which is a big one, racial justice. Mark brought this question up earlier. So there are a lot of different ways of approaching this, from doing a whole series to doing something that's more condensed, like watching a movie. And there's a lot of different kind of resources to get involved in. As we started collecting resources on this a month ago now, there's just been a tidal wave. So I'm sure there's good stuff that I don't have on this list, so know that. So I would say that one of the things you want to think about is your readiness, the readiness of your group to do this. And we can talk about that a little bit more later. But there will be some reading discussion groups starting out this summer. So there's some other opportunities as well. But if your group is all interested in doing this, here's some great resources. So on the Incarnation webpage right now, there is a page that has resources on faith and social justice. It's not humongous because we wanted to keep it from being overwhelming, but that will be added to across time. As you've probably seen, there's a couple of movies that are being lifted up for the summer, Just Mercy and 13. And there is a discussion guide on that page for Just Mercy, and hopefully there will be for 13th if Denise puts it together soon. So those are two options. Also, there are some faith studies, and this deserves a little bit more work than I've had, but for right now, this goes to Mark's question. Dialogues, which you can see in that lower picture, is a resource that comes out from Spark House, and it is a DVD, a book, and a leader guide. And in this case, Mark, you could look at it and see if you think you need the book, but when I looked at it over the weekend, I think the book might be super helpful. Maybe you could read a segment of it as part of the group session. Not sure, that could be explored. But there's 7 topics or essays. This is a Twin Cities based organization. So some of the voices in the video are people right here in our community, along with some of the people that we've been hearing about nationally, some of those voices lifted up as well. So again, DVD, book, leader guide. So if we were meeting in the adult rooms and everything was the way it normally is, this would be, I think, a resource that you guys would really appreciate because of the DVD leader guide component to it. So you can easily go on the Spark House website and find out more about it. Everything right now is so much out on the web that you can really get pretty far in without even really needing to have something in your hand.
Denise,
Yeah.
I just want to ask about this fall. So if you're making the bet, what's the chance that we'll be meeting in person versus online Zoom?
Yeah, that's.
Is there any guidance? I know it's a shot in the dark. You're throwing a dart, but are folks leaning that we're going to be doing Zoom, or are folks leaning that we'll probably be okay? Do you have any inklings on where to plan?
I think different people are leaning in different directions, and so who knows? Yeah, I wish I knew that, Mark. I just don't.
Yeah.
So for example, in the fall series that we're doing that I talked about earlier, we are putting on the calendar the large group gathering, but I'm also in the back of my mind also putting it on Zoom for the calendar. I just, yeah, I don't know. I just don't know. I think it's good to have a backup plan. So if you're using this and you have a DVD player on your computer, you could easily show the DVD in a share screen and use this resource with your group. So I think that would be totally feasible to do.
Okay, good. And to access this, is that what you'll be sending out will have a link or something that I can
Yeah.
Yep. Dialogues on Race sounds interesting. Did you look at it real quick on the Dialogues on Race? Did it sound like a good discussion? kind of provocative enough to get people to talk and dialogue, or is it more just listening?
I think it will spark conversation. I think I don't have enough experience in all of this to know as much as I should. I think that, so the leader guide had a whole layout of how to run a session, but some of it was like experiential stuff, which you may or may not want to do in a group setting, meaning like little activities. But there were always a set of like 4 or 5 questions in the session that you could use in your group. So I think, I do think that this topic, just because of what it is going to raise up a lot of conversation and questions. Yeah, other people may have other questions. So Claire, I saw you, will the meeting be in person versus Zoom, be a church decision or up to individual groups? Are you talking about in small group stuff?
Yeah.
So the way that I imagine this is that each group will make its own decisions, but I, as a small group leader person, staff person, have to follow the guidelines of the reopen task force. So there's a task force that's writing up guidelines on how and when things open. And in general, especially for new groups, that's what I need to follow. But groups that you guys have been out there doing things already, you can certainly meet off-site. And I do have a document with some suggestions for what that could look like if you're meeting off-site following the recommendations of the larger group.
Okay.
Talking around the issue, I have no idea. So did that answer it, Claire?
Yeah, it did. Thanks, Denise.
Yeah.
Denise,
Yeah.
If I could,
I have
another microphone.
I
Oh,
have
go ahead.
another suggestion for an added resource. Whenever the Science Museum opens again, the Science Museum has a permanent exhibit on race. It's really excellent. It'd be a great field trip for a small group.
Good to know. Thanks, Jim. Mark, did you have something else too?
I had one more, and then I'll pass the microphone. I'll be quiet. But on the race topic, like the dialogues of race, I'm reading White Fragility right now. Do you know, are there like on YouTube or something? Is there anything, or a TED Talk that kind of encapsulates topics around that that would be fitting to a small group?
Yeah, so that is the book that has been picked up by council and staff to read. It's kind of our assigned reading for the next stretch of time. And so I think I'm going to have a better answer to that question in about a month.
Oh, okay.
Or if Ruth, do you have something?
I Googled, or I went on YouTube and looked up the author's name, Robin DiCamillo, is that, no,
D'Angelo.
D'Angelo.
Yep.
And there were some YouTubes of interviews. I watched one of them, but it was the YouTube wasn't really well done, so it was a little distracting to watch when the voices weren't in sync with the lips. But there are others that I haven't watched yet, but I plan to watch. So if you just Google her name on YouTube, you'll find some resources.
Yeah. Okay, good. Thank you.
Yeah. And Don and Marty, who are also on this call, have used that book or are using that book and found some resources that I can send you as well. So Don and Marty, if you want to say anything.
We're doing the book now. We're one of the great circles there at Incarnation and discussing it in the evening. And it's nice. Everybody's engaged, I'd have to say, in the group. We got in-depth comments from everybody, all 10 people. So it's a good resource. I think it's going well so far.
I just finished reading it, and just on my own, and I found it very thought-provoking. And I can see where a lot of conversation could get started because we're so blind to what we've been acculturated to.
Mm-hmm.
That it comes as a surprise to us. Much of it, I think, that we haven't been aware of our own incorporating white supremacy.
So below dialogues on race, there's just a heading there that's on more resources, and I only put it on this page because I thought it was such a superb site. And the National Museum of African American History and Culture has a lot of interesting stuff on it, and I think that there could be material here for a faith study. I just haven't simply pulled things together off of it, but I want to commend it to you because I think it's such a good resource. So also, Grant, could you flip the slide? So in addition to dialogues, there are several other things that I think could be faith studies for groups to use, but they take a little more looking. One is called White Privilege, Let's Talk. This one comes out of the United Church of Christ. It's a faith-based series. There's the link. It's a 4-session video series that you would watch videos online.
Yeah, you can.
So it would not be a DVD, but it's an online video thing. Putting Racism on the Table is not a faith-based resource, but it comes out of the state of Washington, and the videos include some of those folks that we've heard books being written about, like D'Angelo. So they're short individual videos, and each of them has a discussion guide, and I think you could select some really superb videos from that and have some great conversation. And that also would be something that you'd be streaming online. And then Lutheran Social Service has a resource called And Who Is My Neighbor, talking about race and racial equity. There are some online videos to watch with that, but there's a full packet of materials with reflections and questions, and it's right there free. You could go on that site right now and download it and have it ready for you. So these I have not fully looked through in depth, but I wanted to put them out there as other possibilities that we can all look at together. And then you guys have already gone to this page, but Grant, if you could flip one more page down. There's also the possibility of doing a book study, which I know is not really something that our small groups have done a lot of, but I think there's a lot of potential here. So here's just some of the books that keep rising to the top. A Good Time for the Truth, Race in Minnesota. So this is really an important kind of slice of understanding how this issue plays out right in our local area. It's a collection of essays written by people who are local. And then you all have probably seen the rest of these books: Between the World and Me, I'm Still Here, How to Be an Anti-Racist, Be the Bridge, White Fragility. And then the last one you probably have not seen as much of, but it's called Anxious to Talk About It, Helping White Christians Talk Faithfully About Racism. I have started reading that book, and I think that's a good starting place for somebody who's not, hasn't done any work on this yet in kind of their faith journey. So as you can see, there's a lot of possibilities. They sometimes go in different directions than the just DVD kind of thing that we've been used to in small groups, but I think it's an important time for this conversation, and there's a lot of resources out there. And people probably are talking about this in other parts of their life too. So it hooks up with that. So,
Denise, Paula had a question in the chat.
Yep, there it is. Yep, so there is a discussion guide on Just Mercy on the website, and the Incarnation website on that social justice page. I'm not remembering much about whether the questions are faith-based or not. That's something I'll look into, Paula, and if not, I can certainly think about that. Is that it?
I've started reading Ta-Nehisi Coates' book, just barely, and it is already a discussion between he and his child or son or whoever it is. And I think I have not looked to see whether there's other stuff out there for that one as well, but it's interesting as well.
Yeah, some of these I have found some discussion guides for. I didn't list all that there. But if you're curious about this, I'd be happy to have a more in-depth conversation one-on-one to kind of sort through which books might be the better ones for your small group. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, big topic, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions or comments on that before I move on? Okay, we're going to go to something that will feel different than that. Psalms for Living was a series that you might remember we did a year ago in the fall. Jean and I have redesigned and revised and put that back together again in a way that you can download it right from the Incarnation website. So this is a small group resource, but it has a pretty strong learning component to it. There are 5 sessions in it, and there's a boatload of supplemental resources. I've gone through this and now gone through it again to rewrite things, and there's a lot of stuff out there. Tracy was going to be here to talk about this, but she was unable at the last minute to be here. But I know some of you have used this series. So I'm gonna, actually, let's flip to the next slide, Grant, and then we'll come back to some comments. What I wanted to show you in this slide is that green box. In every session, there is a section, and some of them it's larger than this, that really gives content background. So this has really got a little bit more of a Bible study component to it than a lot of the small group resources that we've had. But again, right online and ready to download. Your group members could just go online and have their own copies of this. So some of you, anybody else want to kind of say what their experience was with Psalms last fall or now? I know some of you have used it. Tom, you won't have something?
I would say, yeah, our group used it and enjoyed it a lot. I don't know if since you've revamped it, we thought it was important to go over the big session that was started this, and then you went to the 4 sessions, or did you incorporate that into this now?
It is incorporated into the 5, but we have a video of that session, so it would be very possible to watch that. Yep.
Okay, so yeah, that was good to have that as the starting point.
Okay, thanks. Anybody else?
I took the class, loved it. I thought it showed insight to different Psalms, but I also thought it was quite complex. So it's quite deep, and a lot of dissecting of language, and but I liked it. Very thought-provoking.
Yeah, there's a lot in there you could continue to look at. Thanks, Paula. Okay, I'm going to keep going just because we are at a certain point in our time. So if you're looking for something that is more what I would call our traditional format kind of resources, where there's a DVD and a guide and you put it in and boom, there you go. This is a new series that came out from Adam Hamilton, who does a lot of really good work. This is called The Walk, and there are some different topics there, but it's 5 essential practices of the Christian life. So this would be a very simple stick in the DVD and walk through the questions. I think you can use this without reading. There's a separate book, but there is a book if you wanted to do something deeper. The topics for this happen to be worship, study, serving, giving, and sharing our faith. But he has a number of other resources like this: John, the Gospel of Light, Simon Peter, and many, many more. So if you're looking for something that's more our traditional resource, this is one option. All of his things are options, but also there are resource lists that are in the toolkit from other years, and there's a lot of great stuff in there. Just this year, in this session, I'm kind of swinging it a little bit more towards what you can download right from the website. So that's one. Grant, can you keep going? And last but not least is Renew Your Life. Those faith studies have also completely been, well, not completely, but partially been revised and updated to make them have a section about the coronavirus and how that's impacted our lives. And there's also some racial justice questions in there as well. There's a research page on the Incarnation website that has links to all of the summer and winter sermons. And these are very different conversations this summer than they were last winter, I can tell you. So if you think you've done Renew Your Life, it's a new game, I think, in our changing world. So again, these resources have been reformatted and put online so that a group member can easily download them and print those out and use them, and they're ready to go. So that's that. So Grant, I'm not sure if I have another slide there or not. Do I?
I don't think so.
Nope. Okay.
Yep.
So coming back together. So you can see there's a universe out there beyond this of great resources that could be used depending on the format that you want to use. This stuff really leans towards stuff that you can do for free right on the website. You can download it, group members can download it. You can have people in your group who are in different states. We have some people this summer who are in other states and parts of the country, and actually one international person who's in a small group. Yay, Grant and Deb. So, you know, that this is a great opportunity for us. So while there's certainly some downsides to technology and to this world that we're living in right now, there's also the possibility for gathering some people that you know across the country, either formally or informally, because all these resources are yours to use. They're not all exactly on the website yet, but they will be in the next couple of weeks, months. What will be there is there will be a resource page on the website under the small group ministry area that lists all the stuff we talked about. And I will send you the slides. So you will have that. There's also the resource list from past years. But right now, you can Google pretty much anything and find out a lot about it right online without having to have it in your hand. So I think that's a great opportunity for us this year to have a chance to look at some stuff. So with that, what questions?
So Denise, just a question. So if I'm looking for an outer limit, if we're going to order a DVD, what's kind of the time frame that we should have things decided upon in order to make sure our ducks are all in a row?
Yeah, that's a great question, Kathy. Thank you for asking it. I don't know the exact answer to that, and I'll say why in a minute, but I would say if you could kind of think about this in July and have your decisions made by the end of July, that would be ideal. I know for myself, my personal UPS orders are taking some time. I just got something in the mail that was for a birthday that was 3 weeks ago. So I think that the sooner you order, the better, just because stuff is happening out there and things are going slowly. But I would say in general, that's probably a good zone to start with.
And if we find a resource, you know, in our searching that, say it's not part of your list, and we find a resource that we would like to use, do we need to pass that through you first and see how that goes?
No, I'd love to know what you're using, just because it's probably good for other groups to know that, for me to know that for other groups. I would say if it's something where you want us to pay for like the DVD portion of it, typically our DVD things cost about $40. So not thousands of dollars, but in that price range. But no, go for it. I'd love to know what it is for the sake of others.
Thanks.
Yeah, good questions.
I have a question.
I'm going to go to Paula first.
Sorry.
That's okay. Paula?
Sometimes you have insight to this, but Bob Goff has his new book, Dream Big. Do you know if there's going to be a DVD that goes with that?
Well, I haven't seen that. That's interesting.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know, but I'll look that up.
Okay.
I didn't know that he had another book. All right.
Dream Big.
Dream big. Cross your fingers.
Yeah.
Okay, Georgia.
I was just wondering about the logistics now that I can't run into the office and talk to you. If I decide to start another group before summer ends, what are the logistics of how do I get my people, you know, how do I invite people? How do I identify people who would be interested?
Yep. So for anybody who wants to start a new group, I'm thrilled to have a conversation. I'm just here at my house, rubbing my fingers. So we can do a conversation by phone or by Zoom and really just lay out the plan as we would lay out a normal plan for a small group, and then we'll drop it in the communications and kind of go from there. You're right in that people are not necessarily seeing a paper announcement sheet every Sunday, so we do have to be a little bit creative, but that's our starting place.
Great, thank you.
And just like Kathy said, what's the time frame? It'd be great if we could get a start on that in the next few weeks, for sure by the end of July. So, Julie.
Yeah, just a question. If I decided I wanted to do something here on our site with neighbors down our hallway, do I need to register that group with you so that you know that I'm doing that and using some of these materials?
Would love to know that, just because it's great to know, but you don't have to, no. Please tell me, but don't.
Yeah.
Okay, what else? So Claire, did I answer the question about who's deciding and how does that all work? Okay, does that make sense? Because there really isn't exactly an answer.
It does make sense, but I just wanted to, our group's been together a long time, and so we are very comfortable saying exactly what we think. But I just think it would be kind of nice if the church comes up with and just yes, we are meeting in person if you're comfortable. I think some people might be comforted by getting permission to do that. But at the same time, I don't want to put words in the mouth of the people who have the power. So it'd be nice to have some top-down information, and then the groups can decide. And frankly, what Zoom opens up with the people that travel in the winter, it does open up that possibility too, to have meetings where everybody's there versus I'm going to miss for 3 months, kind of thing. So.
Yeah, so I will also send you the document I put together at the end of the week that was sort of the current state of meeting stuff, which has some, here's what we hope and here's what we suggest kind of stuff that I think really does give permission to be meeting off site while taking some steps to be careful. I think it's important for all of us to remember or think about the folks in our group may have varying levels of need. And I mean, need to be together, but also need to stay separate. And so this is a very tricky walk. I will say in my own family, I have some concerns about giving things to people right now. And so I'm probably more conservative than some other folks who really want to be together. So it's for all of us, it's balancing kind of where we each are. But I think to remember that people in your group are probably in different circumstances than you even know. So that's, yeah. So,
and it's also, to echo that, it's also a very fluid and moving target.
amen.
So a decision today is not a decision tomorrow. So it's going to be really hard.
Oh, gives me a headache. It's exploding. Right. So Mark, did your questions get answered from earlier?
Yeah, great.
Okay,
And
Georgia?
Just your comment about the meeting in person, you make me realize amongst the group of us that we have at least one who's got some underlying medical, had a kidney transplant years ago. And so that may cinch it for me. We may be going Zoom this fall, but we'll see. Yes, thank you though.
Yeah, or you could do a mixed mode. That's another option. I think our creativity in this time is going to be really important. Think about how to make it comfortable for everybody. So, yeah.
I will have to add, just my husband's Rocket small group has been trying to meet through the summer. And for the first time, they had a meeting that was a mix of Zoom and in person. And just to kind of give, unless people are used to how that works and kind of working with teleconferences, it can get really kind of confusing about who's talking and what's available in that. So doing the mixed one is really going to take several times to get it to work smoothly.
Yeah, we'll be learning from you. Along with that, there's a couple of people, Grant and Nancy Stutzman, have been meeting with new leaders who are just getting started on Zoom. And there's other folks who are willing to help with that as well. So if you would like to chat with someone to get up to speed on how to do that or some tips, let me know, let Grant know, and we'll kind of put that together. So Grant does it much better than I do, Jim, because I didn't do so well with getting you off the ground. There's some panicky phone calls there on my end. So, okay. I think we're at the closing time. So I just want to say, what did you find in this as we close? Is there anything that you found helpful that you want to take away so that we all maybe have some new insights from one another?
Well, I found it very helpful to know that all of this will be online, that it's accessible to us, and just to look at if we want to look at the resources. I like that we don't have to check out books from you and at church.
Yeah, thanks for,
Very well, Denise. You are amazing. Just amazing.
oh, we got a lot of help. You guys are the amazing ones because you're out there on the ground. So anything else you want to say from tonight? I want to say thank you to you guys for coming, for sharing part of this. As you can see, we still have a lot to learn. I still have a lot to dig in and discover, especially on the racial justice stuff. So if you're interested in that, I'm all ears to hear what you've done and heard. And I'm also going to be diving in deeper myself. So I'm happy to talk with you about what I'm learning too, from the standpoint of what would help a group. So how about if I close in prayer? Anybody wants to hang out and talk more, I'm happy to, but thank you. God, thanks for your gift of community. Thanks for this group of folks. We ask you to bless each person here and to bless the space between us, to remind us that we truly are a place without walls and that we can reach out to reach people who need right now to know that they're connected. Thanks for the opportunity to do this tonight. Thanks for these resources, and bless these folks as they go out. Amen.